What's up, y'all? Steppenwolf Theater's revival of Fool for Love by Sam Shepard is extended by popular demand through March 23rd. The sexy and haunting play has garnered 4 stars from the Chicago Sun-Times and the Daily Herald, which said, "Now is the time to savor the current moment of Steppenwolf returning to Shepard." Fool for Love is on stage now through March 23rd. Get tickets today at steppenwolf.org.
Executive producer Simone Alicea here, and I want to make sure you don't miss your chance to explore the world of James Bond. 007, Inventing the World of James Bond, is now open at the Griffin Museum of Science and Industry and must close April 6th. Get up close to the iconic cars, gadgets, and props from the Bond films. See how real-world science brings 007's adventures to life, from a prototype jetpack like the one in Thunderball to today's Gravity Industries jet suit. Design the perfect spy vehicle, dangle from a steel beam, and more. For tickets, visit msichicago.org.
Today on CityCast Chicago, we're discussing Mayor Johnson's performance in front of Congress. We're talking about an effort to save the city's last Black-owned bowling alley. And today is finally our 1,000th episode. Joining me to celebrate and break it all down from WBEZ host Susie An and Block Club Chicago's Madison Saavedra. It's Friday, March 7th. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago is talking about. Good morning, my friends. Madison, welcome back to the podcast.
Good morning. I'm so honored to be here for the 1000th episode.
Hey, we are glad to have you back. Between the two of y'all, y'all been here about a dozen times. And so thank y'all for being here to celebrate. Susie, welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Love being on the show.
Hey, last time you were here, we were talking about how to survive the cold. And I don't know, knock on wood, we may be on like the other side of the worst of
Hopefully, don't say that.
Now that
don't
you
say
said that, we will
I did the nod.
have
That
a March
wasn't
polar vortex.
That wasn't enough. That wasn't enough. I know people are listening, and they're for the last few months, they have heard me talk about 1,000 episodes. We are slowly approaching. We're quickly approaching in. I never really answered when that day was. Well, today is that day. It has been 4 years of bringing you conversations about, to me, the greatest city in the world, the place that I love with all of my heart. And I mean, 1,000 episodes, including 200 of these Friday news roundups. So before we jump into yet another edition, you know I gotta give a quick pitch for you to become a member of CityCast Chicago. Whether you've been rocking with us for 1,000 episodes or you came in on 995, becoming a member ensures that we can keep it going for 1,000, 2,000, who knows how many more, right? Because whether we've been sitting down with some of the city's best journalists or authors or footworkers or artists, whether we have been finding you the best parties in town or learning about Chicago's history or our animals. Yes, if you knew, we also got some fire animal episodes. I'm just saying, regardless of what we're talking about, we hope that this show has made you feel even just a little bit more connected to this city. And if it has, go ahead and consider throwing your support our way, giving us a little bit of change. Plus, when you become a member, you get ad-free listening, a members-only email with the best events of the week, and there might be a little member meetup in the near future, so you probably want to join sooner rather than later. You could become a member at CityCast Chicago today at membership.citycast.fm. All right. Now that I got that out the way, ask for your money. Let's get back to our guests, Madison, Susie. Like I've been saying, 1,000 episodes. And later this month, we're going to be celebrating when we publish our list of 1,000 plus things we love about Chicago with the help from our sponsor, Navy Pier. But I got to ask y'all, if there's one thing you could add to our growing list of things we love about Chicago, what would it be? Madison, I'm going to start with you.
Well, I'm sure this is already on the list. I'm sorry for not being more original. But I love the lake. I love the lakefront path, the beaches. I do live on the far north side, so I live like 2 blocks away from it. It's a great backdrop for running, for biking, for swimming, all that jazz. I love going to watch dog watch because I
Mhm.
just look at dog owners with envy because I have cats. And it's just beautiful year round, even when it's like snowy and scary and it has that ice shelf that everyone tells you not to walk on because you could die. It's beautiful.
Favorite thing to do in or around the lake? Running, boating, swimming. What's your number one?
I think I enjoy biking. I did my first triathlon last summer, and so I bought my first road bike, did my first kind of series of kind of training for something, did definitely the most biking I've ever done.
Y'all got a lot of bikers over at Block Club Chicago. Some real
Congrats.
cyclists over there.
Yeah, which
I see
I am
y'all.
not there are cyclists at my newsroom that are taken way more seriously than I do. I must put that
Hey,
disclaimer
you just
out
threw out
there.
triathlon. I'm sorry, you up there in my list. Susie, over to you. What is something you want to contribute to our 1,000 things we love about Chicago?
Well, this isn't a thing to do, but I just love how Chicagoans love Chicago so much. Also probably not original, but just Chicago's food scene, whether you want to go high end or a low end. I mean, there is just, you can find anything. You can find whatever it is that you like, whether it is the lowly hot dog, Chicago's just going to zhuzh that up. Or you can shell out the big bucks and go to one of these like multi Michelin star restaurants and have like a dining experience of a lifetime.
I have so many different variations of Chicago's food scene that I put on the list from not only just old fashioned donuts, because I wrote that, the long time shop in Roseland, but I also wrote walking into old fashioned donuts and seeing him bent over making the donuts. I got pizza puff with lemon pepper and mild sauce, 6 wings, sweet steaks, Daisy's ravioli.
Oh my God, yes.
Like their rotating ravioli dish. We got so many different food options. I can't wait for people to see this list. I think I contributed 380 plus items to the list my damn self. And so,
Wow.
I'm a little bit proud of that. But again, people will be able to see that. If you want to tell us something you love, head to the link in our show notes. And as always, our phone number is available. Hop in our DMs, 773-780-0246. Every single Friday, and it has been like this for, like I said, almost 4 years, we bring in some amazing people from across the city to talk about some of the big stories happening in and around Chicago. And one that we've all been covering in some capacity. I know that I sat down and watched a lot of Mayor Johnson and other mayors of big cities, including Denver, New York City, and Boston, sit in front of Congress and testify about their city's sanctuary laws for immigrants, asylum seekers, and new arrivals. Republicans in Congress have continued their mission to not only scapegoat major cities over their policies limiting cooperation with immigration enforcement, but continue their fear mongering for what they call the largest mass deportation campaign in our country's history. Madison, I'm going to start with you. How do you think Mayor Johnson fared in front of this congressional hearing?
I think he held his own. I can't speak for everybody. I had not the highest expectations for the mayor. This was
That's a kind way to say it. That's a nice way to say it.
It's a big deal. I'd be, scared poopless to go in front of Congress. So I can't blame him for, looking a little nervous, in kind of those opening shots. But he held his own. He really defended the city, talking about how the sanctuary city policies have been in place for, almost 40 years. It's nothing new. Really repeated a lot of the high points about Chicago, that murders are down this past year compared to previous years, how violent crime reduced last year compared to the years before, and really stressed that the city isn't breaking any laws. They comply with laws.
You will turn that criminal over to ICE.
With a criminal warrant, as we have done for 40 years.
Should that criminal be turned over to ICE?
With a criminal warrant, they are subject to the federal laws, and that includes deportation.
That was kind of the repeated sentiment, even when some of these representatives were really trying to ask what I would call kind of gotcha questions. They phrase it as this is a yes or no question. All in all, I feel like they probably all walked away feeling pretty successful.
Yeah, he had a lot of prep going into this. A lot of our colleagues were also down in D.C. covering this. But Johnson got down there early. He, had a bunch of lawyers come in. I heard he had some DC pastors come in to pray over him. It was Ash Wednesday, so you saw people in there who had, some Catholics who had gone potentially to mass earlier that day. I think he also prepped with some of his predecessors. Susie, how do you feel Johnson fared?
Yeah, a lot of prep. He had some prep help from Lightfoot, from Emanuel. These are all past administrations that helped kind of build up Chicago, where we are now as a sanctuary city. I would say that I agree with Madison. He held his own in this capacity. Walking into this, it's an attack. And while his talking points felt very scripted at some points, he's not really known for being off the cuff. And I think maybe in this situation, you don't want to be off the cuff. You don't want to come off too emotional, too angry. They want to portray people as being very angry and emotional. And I think he held the line there. And then he got some, maybe some support, little softball questions from Raja Krishnamurthy, which, I think they coordinated that. They knew that was happening, but something to kind of give a little boost during this long hearing when you know that you're just going to get attack after attack.
Yeah, there were definitely moments in Congress. I remember watching longtime Congressman Danny Davis sit up there towards the end and pretty much call this entire hearing out for being not only a baseless attack on a lot of these policies, a lot of these mayors, and a lot of these cities, but he called it out for being fear-mongering. He called it out alongside the cuts of federal funding across different institutions in Chicago and how those don't make our cities any safer, don't provide more resources for public safety. If I could put my communications professor hat on for a second, I do think of the four, at times Johnson came off the most scripted, but I do appreciate that he stuck to his talking points by the end. He didn't answer a lot of the gotcha questions. He went back to his talking points. At one point, even Representative LaHood said, I don't agree with your statistics.
And you look at the level of violent criminals, sexual offenses, and drug dealers.
All violent crime is down in Chicago. In fact, just this year alone, Congressman, respectfully, there's a 20% decrease in violent crime in the city of Chicago.
I don't agree with your statistics.
It's not a matter of whether or not you agree with it. It's a matter of whether it's a fact. Let me reclaim my time.
And Mayor Johnson plainly said, well, they're not here for you to agree with, right? These are the facts that I'm providing today. And to sit in front of, ad hominem attacks where representatives are calling out, the gift room or calling out his rating. When you have representatives making these straw man arguments about how these mayors and Johnson in particular support violence against citizens and jobs being taken away from folks, I appreciate that he sort of remained steadfast in his approach.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think Johnson gave the Republicans any opportunity for a viral gotcha moment.
Some representatives said they will send recommendations to the DOJ to continue investigations of them. But Susie, does this testimony hearing change anything for Chicago? Johnson has to come back and continue the hard work of providing resources for all residents in the city.
I don't know if this hearing really changes anything with just what the mission of the administration is.
I imagine at the least this will be a feather in Mayor Johnson's hat coming back. One of those moments that he's going to come back with a bit of a I survived in the lion's den kind of vibe.
Oh, yeah,
and I wonder if I wonder how that impacts press conferences, hirings, firings, motions moving forward, how he plays with city council members moving forward.
Executive producer Simone Alicea here, and I'm here to tell you time is running out to step into the world of James Bond. 007 Science, Inventing the World of James Bond is now open at the Griffin Museum of Science and Industry, and it must close April 6th. I had a chance to catch this exhibit in the fall, and I gotta tell you, it was super cool, and you don't want to miss it. This first ever official exhibition explores the science and technology behind the world's longest-running movie franchise. Get an up-close look at the iconic cars, gadgets, and props from the Bond films, and discover how real-world science helped create 007's on-screen adventures. See incredible Bond gadgets alongside the real-life inventions they inspired, like a prototype jetpack from Thunderball and today's Gravity Industries jet suit. Test your ability to design the perfect spy vehicle, dangle from a steel beam, devise amazing stunts, and more. Get your tickets today at msichicago.org. That's msichicago.org.
Susie, almost 3 years after the deadly Highland Park 4th of July parade shooting that left 7 dead and nearly 50 others injured, the trial was set to begin this week, but things didn't necessarily go as expected, did they?
That's right. The defendant, Robert Crimo, the trial was set to begin. They were going to give opening statements, but then in a surprise turn of events, he pleaded guilty, which is a total turnabout from the previous hearing when he was expected to plead guilty, but then decided not guilty. And of course, that is in some ways like really just re-traumatizing the community and the families of the victims. But in this case, the judge asked him, like, are you sure? Do you know what you are doing right now? He said yes. There was a little strange thing where, like, in the form he had to sign that he is pleading guilty, he actually signed Donald Trump in the signature. But legal experts say that because he verbally stated that he's pleading guilty in court in front of the judge, and that was accepted by the judge, that stands. There could be a possibility to challenge the signature, but that is unlikely. But in any case, this means that there won't be a long, drawn-out trial. They were expecting this could have been maybe as long as 5-6 weeks. But this is something that now the community does not have to kind of relive in this form.
Yeah, when I read that earlier this week, I couldn't help but not only remember the flip-flop during the original hearing, but think about all of the work that went in on all ends to get jurors in, to prepare families, media members. They thought this trial could last, 3 weeks to past a month. While in some ways, I'm glad that, family members don't have to go through watching all those videos and hearing all those testimonies. It does feel like he was playing a bit of a game with prosecutors in this move. And it's definitely worth noting that this shooting led pretty directly to Illinois' assault weapons ban, which has been working its way through the courts since it was approved. The latest is a state appeals court said the law could remain, but it's still working through the federal appeals court. So this was a landmark moment, not only for all of the people who were there, for families, the entire community, but has had an impact in our legislature that is still playing out to this day. I believe the sentencing hearing was set for April, correct?
Yeah, I think later in April. So that'll be another point that I'm sure the community will be looking out for.
Mm-hmm. Susie, I want to stay with you. We have been trying to track the many ways Chicago institutions, agencies, organizations are being impacted by the haphazard and completely like overwhelming slashing of federal employees, federal grants. Your colleague, Lisa Phillip, wrote a story this week about how that's impacting some researchers and students in the city.
So the Trump administration is upending federal research funding. That's funding for agencies like the National Institutes of Health, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. And you're seeing those problems kind of trickle down to young researchers, students who are getting their research work off the ground. And that it goes even further. So she spoke to some young researchers who are looking into why Black women in America are 3 times more likely to die while giving birth. And that research is necessary to change that, to make improvements in healthcare. You know, it's interesting. We've been talking about how DEI is also under attack, and you're finding it in here as well.
They've basically done a keyword search.
Exactly.
Black, women, transgender, and any diversity and programs, grants, organizations that are doing work. Regardless, they've just put out sort of a blanketed sweep.
Yeah, I mean which is wild that it's flagging keywords.
But to see how much chaos it has created, even with federal judges temporarily blocking some of the administration's drastic cuts, like you said, you've seen companies, organizations, hospitals roll back initiatives, even if they just fear that they may be attacked down the line.
You know, I've heard from workers who said that they ask their boss straight up, am I going to have a job next week? And their boss says yes. But then a couple of days later, they're gone. You know, their position is gone. And then there's just some confusion of whether some positions are going to come back, but no one knows how any of this is rolling out.
Yeah, if I could just jump in, I mean, it's gotta, disincentivize anyone from wanting to work for the federal government or anyone wanting to work in a job that depends on federal funding. It just, in my mind, it sets a precedent for a lot of back and forth about our government, our country's priorities, which it can't be good for morale, for like worker morale.
Mm-hmm. No, that's the exact point. It's to erode people's confidence far beyond what this 4 years can mean for any one agency or any one administration. Even if some of these mass exodus get scaled back, if some of these grants get re-implemented, it also pushes us further towards relying on the private market, private benefactors in a way that is so dangerous for public goods and the safety of communities. And so we will continue to follow these stories. We will drop a link in the show notes to all of the articles that we've covered thus far in the conversation. Madison, one of your colleagues recently wrote a piece about Skyway Lanes, a bowling alley on the far south side in Jeffrey Manor that's been around since the 50s, but they are struggling and need our help. Can you tell us more about this story?
Yeah, so this was an article from my colleague, Mac Lederman, who I think I said earlier is kind of our resident bowling enthusiast. He's written a couple stories about Chicago kind of bowling institutions, and this is the latest one. So this is a bowling alley on the far south side. One of the last on the south side, the last Black-owned bowling alley. And, I think what's interesting about bowling is that it's really gone through, I think, some evolutions. And Mac kind of talks about it, with the family that's kind of trying to keep it afloat, how it's really changed a lot. The pandemic seems like it stopped, a lot of people from coming in. So, less customer base. And then an issue that this specific bowling alley also faced, their property tax assessment of a very large facility, 35,000 square foot, it almost doubled. So in trying to keep this place afloat, they're fundraising. They've got a GoFundMe that's linked in our story. It's a pretty hefty goal they have. The GoFundMe right now lists ideally $1 million. But Hill Corley, she's the daughter of like the original owner. She was saying that the first $400,000 would be to like pay off some debt, the mortgage, some other renovations, and then the rest would be used for like facility upgrades. So, anybody who has a passion for bowling, for, small family-owned businesses, particularly on the South Side, I would encourage them to read the story. I think they have a lot of hope, in trying to keep this establishment alive, for Hill Corley's father, who passed away in 2016. But his wish was for the family to keep it afloat. So I think bowling is kind of coming back as like a cool activity for people. I know I have bowled more in the past 3 years than I did probably in my first like 23 years of life. Maybe also join a bowling league is the other tip I'd maybe throw out there.
No, this story hit me in a number of ways. One, because it's the story of the Hill Corley family. You mentioned Brunetta Hill Corley, Rico Corley, and Jacqueline Corley, who are currently running it. The patriarch of their family, Johnny Hill, was a community member known for opening, as the story points out, convenience stores and laundromats and car washes. And this bowling alley was another one of those like legacy institutions, not only for their family, but for their neighborhood. And bowling, similar to like roller skating, which is, you know, this story hits so close to my home because I grew up in a family-owned roller skating rink. It felt like those were the things you could do as a kid. My mom was talking to me recently. Bowling, church, and roller skating were pretty much the only activities that were available to her outside of hanging hanging in her neighborhood with her friends. And then the ebbs and flows of both of these cultures that if you are on the outside looking in, you don't know how deep they run. Like as a skater, I take for granted how deep Chicago roller skating history goes. But reading this story, I didn't know that there was once more than 100 different bowling alleys around the city, that bowling leagues thrived across the city. Yeah, this story was just, it hit home so much. And I'm really hoping, like you said, $1 million. That's a big goal. I'm hoping they can get close.
You know, maybe someone, you know, with the large backing will read it and, you know, make a pledge or something.
Yeah, if there's like a big bowling league out there that could do a big showing or something.
Actually, I want to know real quick. Do either of y'all know the highest score you've ever bowled?
Oh my God.
I think I once scored, I think the best, a 160 something. And I have never even come close to doing that again. It was pure luck. I think it was like a bad day, like really needed something good and like something really came forward in my spirit. And so
I've probably broken 100 6% of the time that I've bowled in my life. Susie, what about you?
Yeah, I'm not a good bowler. I don't know. I can't even, I mean, I know I've broken 100. I don't know how high, like if it's like a 101, I don't know. But yeah, I tried out the media bowling league and I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to come back. I feel like I'm really bringing everyone down. I want this team to do well, so I will just fade into the darkness. Please go on without me.
Every single episode of CityCast Chicago ends the exact same way, and that's with some good news. What am I going to start with today? Madison, let's start with you. What is your good news for CityCast Chicago today?
my good news is bagel related. It's and you know, this might be received with like mixed feelings because it is a New York City bagel shop that's expanding to Chicago, bringing its first Chicago location to the West Loop, or I guess to Fulton Market more specifically. This is H&H Bagels. So to me, this is good news because I love bagels. And while I do believe that Chicago is the best freaking city in the whole world, I do think we could use more bagel shops. I stand by that. Don't come for me. I really love bagels. I feel very strongly about it. And I'm excited to give this place a try. It's going to open at 156 North Peoria Street this summer. So stay tuned.
This is one corner of Chicago's food scene that I have never ventured into, but I know people got strong ass opinions about their bagels. It's constantly brought up in the New York City Chicago war. And it's one I'm never even going to go into. I don't mind a good bagel every now and then. I used to live in upstate New York. I'd probably just I just went to Einstein's and got a bagel. So I wasn't really thinking about it that much, but I am glad that you are being served up with some fresh, new, good bagels. I'm happy for you, Madison.
Thank you.
Susie, over to you. What is your good news for us today?
Oh, my good news. Let's see. I think we've got a school fundraiser coming up, and I never pictured myself being a parent who's like really excited about a school fundraiser. But this is one where it's like, the adults only cocktail night, cocktails for a cause kind of thing. And I think what I really love about this time of year and this specific fundraiser in general is that it's a room full of parents who are feeling the same way. Like, we want to support our kids, but we're so glad that they're not here. And we just want to unwind. And I know what you're feeling. You know what I'm feeling. And, we're on the same level right now. Like, no one's putting up any airs about this. Like, yeah, we're just here to relax and have a good time.
We're all exhausted.
Yeah. And it's like, there's like a dad band, like a band with of dads in the school who perform. And I mean, it's like truly a school community parent effort to put this on. And teachers get down. Like this is also what I love. Like you see the teachers cut loose too. We're all here doing it together.
We're all on the same page.
I'm excited for it.
I absolutely love that for you. I'm going to round out our good news today. I got a couple. One, Vintage Days from Chicago Counterfeit is back this weekend. It's a full day of music, shopping through old clothes. Three Little Pigs gonna have food in the building, and it's Saturday from 11 a.m. to 6 at Avondale Music Hall. I am going to be taking my first pottery class at Penguin Foot, about maybe a 10-minute, 14-minute drive away from there. So I may pull up this Saturday. And then in celebration of all things CityCast Chicago and 1,000 episodes, I'm going to be sitting down with Derek Bish for Welcome to the Show at the Getaway on Monday. Doors open at 7:30. And I'm going to just be talking about what it has been like making this podcast alongside executive producer Simone Alicea for the last 4 years. And so that's pretty much what I'm going to be doing, giving her most of the credit during my interview. Spoiler alert.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Yeah, all of that sounds great.
In addition to that, I want to give both of y'all credit for being here today, for coming back to the podcast time and time again over the last 4 years. From WBEZ host Susie On. Susie, thank you for being here, my friend.
Thank you.
And from Block Club Chicago, reporter Madison Saavedra.
Always a pleasure.
Before we get out of here, I want to give a huge thank you to all of the people who make CityCast Chicago possible. Our executive producer is Simone Alicea, holding it down with me every day for the last 4 years. Our producer is Michelle Navarro. Our Hey Chicago newsletter editor is Ava Wanowski. Our roving producer this week is Lizzie Goldsmith. Our social media manager is Rick Homuth. Music we all love is from Sam Thousand, all the kimonos, Mark Greenberg from the Mayfair Workshop. I want to give a special thank you to our original executive producer, Carrie Shepard, our original newsletter editor, Sydney Madden. That original team of 4 people helped build this entire thing, this podcast, this newsletter. And I want to give a huge thank you to everybody who has been listening, whether you've been here for 4 years or not. Thank you for joining us, for riding along, whether it's your first episode or your last episode or somewhere in the middle. I appreciate you. We're going to be back bright and early on Monday. Hopefully you'll join us. Peace.
The Media Bowling League there are some teams that take it very seriously because they've got some really good players. I tip my hat to them, but it's also just fun.
If it's anything like softball, y'all really, people listening, Chicago's media community, they love to come together and tear their ACLs playing softball and throw gutters and strikes at no sense of consistency. So
nope.
it get real serious out in these streets, y'all.
Mm-hmm.